take two. You'll never see take one, folks. Don't worry about it. It wasn't that entertaining anyway, don't worry. And it lasted for, a good 60 seconds, but what a 60 seconds it was. Sam's here. There's Sam. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Davey, again.
I'm not going to
Um,
bother with the how are you
no,
because that would be the third time we've done that because we've done it off screen. We've done it in the first round and then Zoom crashed and then we're back after, 90 seconds later to go. So how are you again?
a
Basically,
lot's
folks,
happened in that time.
yeah, Sam's fine, I'm fine, we're all fine, or we wouldn't be doing a Zoom video. If there was a flood coming down the road, I wouldn't be sitting here, let's be honest. So we're fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine, Davey.
Okay.
As you said, I wouldn't be sat here if there was a flood coming. So I'm
Well,
excited to talk about the topic that we have today.
you're a trooper. Indeed, there is a topic. The topic today is three first-time watches that Sam and I have had this year. However, they're not the same first-time watches. So you're getting six. Oh my goodness, six things that we've watched between us this year so far for the first time. Perhaps for the last time, depending on how we feel about them. But for the first time anyway. And we'll give you some brief thoughts on them. Knowing this channel, some not so brief thoughts as well. Sam, I would love it if you would kick us off, partially because you're my guest, partially because you know I love you, and partially because I'm still knackered.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll kick things off so you can have a little bit of a, an awakening of
Yeah,
sorts.
pick your boring thing so I can just kind of.
Yeah, thank you. So this film actually came out last year. Davey's really interested in what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, this film came out last year, but I only managed to get the disc for this year, and I watched it. And it's one of my favorite things that I watched this year. Otherwise, I wouldn't be bringing it up right now. And I know me and David had a little conversation about this in a chat a while ago, and we're talking about Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid.
Oh, you did get it from Germany.
I did. So yeah, this currently doesn't have any release in the UK, or
No,
does it?
none
No,
at all.
nothing. No,
Same
not
as
deep. No DVD, Blu-ray,
nothing.
or 4K. So I had to get it off of Amazon Germany to get delivered to my house, and it was very cheap, actually, very surprisingly cheap. But Ari Aster, a very interesting filmmaker. Obviously made Hereditary, Midsommar, and now Beau is Afraid. And I think this is very much his sort of like his like pet project. This is something he's wanted to make forever. And it took him making a couple of films that I'm sure he's very passionate about making in his debut and his sophomore film. But I think this has always been in the back of his mind, and no one would ever give him probably the financial opportunity to make this without making two prior successful, critically and commercially successful films. And unfortunately, Beau is Afraid kind of bombed at the box office, and it's very mixed reviews, with audiences and critics alike. Brief synopsis: a chap called Beau, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is very troubled, to say the least. Has a lot of mummy issues, and the film picks up when he's sort of like in middle aged, and he's just undergoing a severe mental crisis. So a lot of the film, you don't know whether it's actually happening, or if it's imagined, or if it's a dream or a fantasy. So that's very much how the narrative of the story goes, and it goes into some very weird, strange places that I love. I'm very much about off the wall experimental things, not for the sake of being experimental, but like if the experiment lands for you, then that's fantastic. And for me, Beau is Afraid landed for me. It's a very long film. It's like nearly 3 hours, and for me, it's zipped by. It's a very fastly paced 3 hour film that I can understand a lot of people would probably find extremely tedious and self-indulgent. That's the point, I think, of the film. I think some people miss that sometimes, not particularly with this, but with other films that are self-indulgent when they're purposefully doing it that way. It's not another type of self-indulgence, which I don't know how to describe. I don't know if you'll be able to just, you know what I'm trying to say here, but and it just charts Beau's story sort of like into old age, and then it has flashbacks to when he was a child and where some of his trauma may have begun, and it is absolutely nuts. And I'm very happy that it exists, because there's very few films that are like this. It even goes into like using mixed media, so like animation and live action, and then sort of almost like cut out, old school South Parky type stuff. And I just absolutely love it. Anxiety inducing throughout, so if you're of a nervous disposition, I'd probably avoid this one, unless you're just want to put yourself through an ordeal like that. But I absolutely loved it. Favorite, one of my, not maybe my favorite, but definitely one of my favorite things. 4K looks really good, sounds really good, and I have no idea why this is not available in the UK. It must something to do with rights, but stunning. Lots of great supporting roles as well. Like Nathan Lane is in this film, and Parker Posey's in this in a good role, and it's just stunning. I absolutely loved it. I know you've seen it. Do you want to give some brief thoughts on it, Davey?
Yeah, no, I think you've summed it up really well. I think it's actually quite horrific in places. It's quite funny in places. But in that regard, Joaquin Phoenix is the perfect actor for it, because there is a little bit of the self-indulgence of, say, Inherent Vice, which again was intentional, Paul Thomas Anderson. And there's also the tone of The Master in places, which he was also in, where is this a dark comedy? Is this going slightly horror? Is it slightly fantasy? Is it all just a fever dream? So the tone of it is very cinematic rather than, or very literary,
Yeah.
rather than being something to take at face value. And I think the reason it bombed, apart from trying to sell that movie to the public anyway, is the adverts and whatnot. It just made it look like Joaquin Phoenix is an old man and that's it.
Right.
Because they didn't want to give anything away. And if you don't want to give anything away, it's a hard sell.
Of course, yeah.
So, do you want one of mine, Sam?
I'd love to hear about one of your favorite watches of the year so far.
Let's see. From the BFI, the British Film Institute, Werner Herzog's Radical Dreamer. Or he is the Radical Dreamer, because it's biography-like, but it's not a biography, because I can't imagine anything worse than just a straight A to Z of Werner Herzog. So this was released a couple of months ago, and at its best is an absolutely brilliant portrait of Werner Herzog. At its worst, there are people just saying platitudes that we've all heard a million times. I do not need Nicole Kidman and Robert Pattinson to say he's very complicated. He's such an unusual. Yeah, he's such a poet. He's an artist. He's a visionary. Yeah, thanks, Nicole Kidman. Piss off, Nicole Kidman. But taking those parts away, which don't inform too much of the film, you do get a wonderful portrait of Werner Herzog, a slice of life, where he's bringing through young artists who are young filmmakers through a foundation that he operates. So that's the kind of framing device, is getting to see him in the modern day doing that. And watching as he shepherds them through various things. We meet some young filmmakers who've now become filmmakers themselves, of quite renown. Joshua Oppenheimer.
Yep.
I think he just won the Oscar, didn't he? I saw Oppenheimer Oscar. No, I think it's a different thing. And then shut up, Sam. Shut up, it's early. Right. And then Chloe Zhao is in there as well. But again, those are valid people to have, and they've been nurtured by him. and Robert Pattinson and Nicole Kidman and a few others. Carl Weathers is in it. I mean,
Okay.
they're in the Mandalorian together or
Mm.
whatever, but come on, Carl Weathers, he literally exists in it just to go, he eat a shoe? Why'd he eat a shoe? What? Okay, so there's a little bit of just get rid of those talking heads and let's listen to the artist here. But watching Werner Herzog nurture these projects and these young filmmakers through is perhaps the most interesting part of the film. Well, there's a part where a young filmmaker is making a short film, and you don't get the full story of what the film's about, but the mountain in this filmmaker's story is going to be speaking the actual mountain.
Right.
And Werner Herzog says, "And who is going to be doing the voice of this mountain?" And you can see the filmmaker kind of light up as if, is he volunteering? And he says, you could do it. And Werner Herzog says, you have to start to detach yourself from me. So it's almost like he's telling them you need to let go of taking you this far in your journey, and now you need to start finding your own way, and you can't just rely on featuring Werner Herzog
Yeah.
or from executive producer Werner Herzog. And then it starts to go a little bit back into his own journey. So we do talk about a little bit of Fitzcarraldo, Nagiri, the Wrath of God, like, but not too much because again, like David Lynch, there's no point in doing an A to Z of Werner Herzog. It would just be defeating the purpose of what he set out his entire career to do. So it gives you his philosophies, it gives you a snatch of his current life that may or may not be true. He's always liked the idea of just bullshitting and getting away with it.
Yeah.
And kind of combines them into what may be a biography of Werner Herzog and probably is, but it's as close as you'll get to. There's no such thing as an unguarded Werner Herzog. He consistently reminds you everything you do is theatre in life. It's just a different type of theatre. He's always performed. And it even kind of comments on that now he can't just be Werner Herzog the artist. He's also public face in America because of The Simpsons and the Tom Cruise film. What one was that? Jack Mission Impossible.
Jack Mission Impossible. Jack
Uh,
Reacher.
Jack Reacher, that's the one. Um, Jack Mission Impossible. It was the villain in that. The Mandalorian. So he's a well-kent face, if you will, for just with the most casual of audiences who've never heard of Fitzcarraldo and are never going to sit through any of his films apart from maybe Bad Lieutenant, thinking it's a remake of a Harvey Keitel movie. But that's about it. So it's a really fascinating documentary, which, and this seems to be a recurring theme with me in documentaries released by the BFI. I could lose 10, 15 minutes of and make it a better documentary. And rather wonderfully, the essay in the booklet kind of puts the film down quite a lot, I think. It's by Jeff Andrew. And he essentially says you don't learn anything about him from any kind of documentary. This is all a bit pointless, really. So I thought, well, we didn't get paid too much, Jeff. But regardless, it's I think a fascinating slice of potential explanation for a little bit of Werner Herzog's psyche.
Nice. Well, if you get a small slither of an insight, then I feel like with an artist like him, I mean, I'm not very well versed with Werner Herzog. I've only seen 2 films by him, which is probably appalling to any viewers or listeners out there.
What 2 films?
Fitzcarraldo and Aguirre, Wrath of God, are the only 2 I've seen. So
Oh,
at least I think so.
Have you not seen any of the documentaries?
No, I don't think I have. Oh no, he did the Grizzly Man.
The
didn't he?
Grizzly Man.
I have
Yeah.
seen that one. I completely forgot he directed that, so I have seen that one as well. I don't think I've seen anything else.
Well, the one I think you need to see is my son, what have you done? Be
Okay.
because that is produced by David Lynch.
Oh, okay.
Um, and the two stars that are Michael Shannon and Willem Dafoe.
Well, okay. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
So executive producer David Lynch, directed by Werner Herzog. That will do. So, Sam,
Nice.
what's your second pick of this fine Sunday morning?
Okay, and we'll go for this one. You might be pleased with this one. This is a recent release from Vinegar Syndrome, and it's a little film called Southern Comfort, directed by Walter Hill. I'm
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
under the impression that you might be a fan of this one. Never heard of it. Shall I explain what it's about?
Okay, tell me everything about one of my favorite movies.
No, I feel like out of my depth, but I'm just sharing my thoughts on something I've really
Oh no,
enjoyed.
I know. That's
Yeah, Southern Comfort, 1981 film. I didn't watching it at the time. I thought it's set in the 70s, but I've really felt it was made in the 70s just by the way it looks and feels and stuff like that. But it's made in 81, and it's set with guardsmen, National Guard, a bunch of people in the deep south, Louisiana area, are like on a mission, like a training mission, where they're in the bayous in Louisiana, and they go off the beaten track and they get lost, and they need a canoe to progress on their journey. And it happens that these canoes belong to some like Cajuns that live in the bayou, and they notice that this happens, and then a conflict occurs. And it's very much a meditation on war culture in America, and particularly around the world, but obviously the film's set in America, so it's particularly focusing in on that. But you could, you know, make it about various different parts of the world and how they treat war and how conflicts arise, and just the general attitudes of the people that are in the conflict. And also a bit of a trope that's probably been played to death, but like toxic masculinity and how things are like spiral out of control when behavior isn't checked, and people not, it's also like blind following authorities, but then also not checking authority at the same time. So it's got that dichotomy of like you should follow orders, but also you shouldn't follow orders blindly and things like that. And it's just, I think it's a masterpiece. Honestly, I know you feel very strongly about it, but I love the cast. So we've got like Powers Booth and Fred Ward and David Carradine and a bunch of other supporting characters in this film. And I'm a huge fan of the music by Ry Cooder. I didn't know the music was by him when I first put on the film, and then when the intro credits sort of like come in the music, I was like, this guitar is fucking beautiful. I absolutely love this. And I'm like, and then his name comes up on the thing, like music arranged and composed by Ry Cooder, and I was just like, this is just, yep, I was amazing. And when all those little guitar moments pop up through the film to accent various different scenes and stuff, it just really elevates just the whole thing. I was a really big fan of that, and also really big fan of how it looks with the camera work and stuff, because it wasn't filmed in Louisiana. I think it was filmed in like Texas, in some of the like around a lake or something, like looked like a bayou but not quite, or something like that. You probably correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I don't know how it must have been a really tough shoot, because they're just wading through swampland through so much of it, and just looks really sticky, and just has that really sort of deep south, sort of uncharted territory feel to it, like a stranger in a strange land, which is sort of like meant to reflect the Vietnam War and things like that. And yeah, absolutely loved it. Like, amazing film, definitely like in contention for my favorite thing of the year so far. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Southern Comfort, as I know it's a very, very film that's close to your heart?
It is, and so is the booze. I do enjoy some of the comfort of the evening. It's refreshing. But yeah, it's a fantastic film. which you've summed up extremely well. And a lot of the themes of it are myriads and a little bit uh, amorphous, where you can extrapolate quite a lot of perhaps wasn't what was intended, but you can regardless take away anyway. Walter Hill wasn't someone to stamp too much authorship onto a film and say, this is the message, take that. He kind of let you say whatever you like about his films and let you be the ultimate judge. So whether you think it's a treatise on Vietnam, or a response to Vietnam films, perhaps, where you don't need to go overseas to have this kind of battle, folks. It's sitting domestically. And doesn't that ring different these days with insurrections, January the 6th and whatnot? Chris, that could be a documentary in a couple of months' time, depending on who wins the election. It's a fantastic film. Powers Booth's one of my favorites. I think his collaborations with Walter Hill are phenomenal. I love Extreme Prejudice. Keith Carradine grounds it a lot. He's, I'd say, ostensibly the lead. It's a kind of three-man piece as a lead, but I think he's the kind of heart of it. And yeah, it's compared to Deliverance, and again, I think no, it's not. If it reminds me of any film of the 70s, it's a take on Apocalypse Now and that kind of journey where things just get stranger with every step you take up that river. It's kind of it's a military Alice in Wonderland more than anything else.
Yeah.
Where son of a gun, we're going to have big fun on the bayou, to quote Hank Williams. Too early for country music. Would you like my second choice, Sam?
Please.
Criterion's release of the Roaring Twenties.
I really want that disc.
Well, I've got it. So
yeah, oh, fantastic. That doesn't help me.
It's a limited edition of one. So it's 4K and Blu-ray, and looks absolutely stunning. But for anyone who doesn't know, this is Jimmy Cagney and Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, if you can't see, always sits above me. See him there? Yeah. He's like the patron saint of shenanigans. So Humphrey Bogart and Jimmy Cagney and their dull friend was really boring. Every old movie where there's like two stars, the third guy in it always has to win the most boring plank of wood. I think that was part of the cycle of Hollywood at the time, right? Okay, we've got the star, we've got a co-star. Who's the boring guy? All right, you'll do it. So two friends, well, three friends in a plank of wood. So they're at the front in World War One. That's where this film takes place for the first 10 minutes. Very different from most gangster films. Very different indeed. And it starts with one of those old school 1918, the world's at war.
Yeah.
One of those great voiceovers with a newsreel happening on top. And then we see the actions of these three friends on the front, and it kind of tells you what they're going to be like from then on. Where they're in a foxhole. Is that what they're called? It sounds right, a foxhole. There's a big hole in the ground where they duck for cover from German bullets, right? So they're in a foxhole, and Humphrey Bogart is absolutely fuming that this random soldier has jumped into his foxhole, and he wants to throw him out of it. Cagney's saying, no, come on, he's just trying to survive like us. And Bogart starts making fun of this new guy for being saying he's scared, basically. Oh, you're yellow, are you? That kind of thing. And Cagney says, we're all scared. It only takes one bullet, and that's the end of it. And then the armistice is declared, right? This is all the first 10 minutes, so I'm not spoiling. Plus, if you don't know that World War One ended, So World War One ends. Um, that's really the end of the Kaiser's part of the story. He's not involved. The Kaiser doesn't get into the bootlegging part of this story, unfortunately. So World War One ends, they all return to America, and then it becomes a really interesting little 20 minutes about the way, funnily enough, military men are treated. And this would become a big theme in the Vietnam era about how soldiers are treated on their way back home. What happens to them when they get back? There's no jobs for them. Jimmy Cagney goes back to get his old job and he's told, "Look, you've been away for 2 years. I've got somebody else." And he can't get anything. And what he can get is just driving taxi cabs. And then he gets a small opportunity by chance to do one delivery, which turns out to be bootlegging. Prohibition's just come in. And again, voiceover guy comes in and goes, 1920, Prohibition has just started. Yes, I love that voiceover guy.
Yeah.
So Prohibition kicks in, and as we know, that really gives birth to organized crime in America in a big organized way. It's the reason why it's called organized crime after Prohibition. And he starts to get small opportunities, just not even intentionally. He's given a bottle that's wrapped up and asked to deliver it. And he does just for 10 cents. Is that a lot of money? I don't know. 1920, whatever, right? And he gives it, and he's arrested. The cops do a raid, and he's arrested. He's blah blah blah. He gets bailed out. Thanks for not ratting on his kids, and why don't you come work with us? So he starts in this organization, and I'm jumping a lot here, but he works his way up, and then he wants to go out on his own and become a proper bootlegger. And he tries to perform this heist, and it's on a boat out at sea because there's a 12-mile rule where it's not officially the US waters. Um, and the boat captain out 12 miles doing the bootlegging that he's now going to try and do the heist on is Humphrey Bogart. And then they join forces to become the Avengers of bootleggers. Something. Um, it's not quite the way they phrase all this stuff.
Of course.
And then the plank of wood comes back into it as well. He's the lawyer. Perfect job for him. Even when he was in the Foxhole, he seemed like a boring lawyer. But essentially at that point, it turns into a very proto-Martin Scorsese film. So all that happens in about the first half hour. And then for the next hour, it's essentially the kind of thing that Scorsese would do with Casino, where the best intentions are on the road to hell, and no good deed goes unpunished. And people make small decisions that lead to, well, if I've done that, then it isn't a big issue to do something just a bit worse, and then a bit worse, and a bit worse. And before you know it, they're murdering gangsters. But it's very different from the other type of Cagney movies of this cycle, the gangster cycle, like Public Enemy, like White Heat. He's not a psychopath in any way, shape, or form, unlike those performances. He's essentially just a regular guy who's suddenly got opportunities in life and he's never had them before and he's taken them. But he's lost track of who he was, the decent person that he was, and every decision that he makes goes forward. But there's still that glimmer of hope that deep inside he's still a good person. Bogart's irredeemable. He's the bad guy. This is just at the point before Bogart becomes the big star. He's already made The Petrified Forest, but he's not yet Humphrey Bogart. That would take until 1941, so about 2 years on, with Maltese Falcon, and then the next year Casablanca. But yeah, there's no big surprises in how it ends. This is a Hays Code film, so people that have done these kind of things have to suffer consequences. So you kind of know who's going to live and who's going to die. You've seen this kind of film before, but the journey is immaculate. It's done so impossibly well. All the performances are brilliant. Bogart's so punchable in it. He's such a prick. Humphrey Bogart, Jimmy Cagney does manage to show that he's becoming more and more like that. But every step of the way, you're just rooting for him to go back to the way he used to be. He's inherently likable, despite the fact that at this point he's made his trade in unlikable psychopaths as gangsters. He's a force of nature and a true force of nature. A wonderful performance, a real firebrand. And there's some great little supporting characters along the way as well. With what's her name, Gladys George playing Panama, who's kind of nightclub singer who is in love with Cagney, but he's in love with somebody else, and that's a whole separate story. But again, very like something you get in the Scorsese story, that the would-be gangster's mole, but he's got eyes for somebody else kind of thing. So it's much more intricate than your normal Warner Brothers gangster film of the 1930s.
That sounds fantastic. And I wanted that release ever since it was announced, but got a budget and things. I will pick it up one day. But yeah, it just seems to be getting glowing reviews from so many people. So and 4K for a film like that as well. It's just I'm loving that sort of thing that Criterion are doing. I'm like, more of that.
And I won't show you this, but I swear to God, the inside, the minute you open it up and the booklet faces you, is the ending of the film.
Oh, okay.
Like right now, I'm staring at the last shot of the film.
Right.
Just by opening the box. How stupid is that?
Okay. Noted. I'll open the case when I get it, like with my eyes closed, and take the disc out of the tray.
Yeah,
as best as I can. Thanks for the heads up, because I bloody hate spoilers. It's like a pet peeve of mine. So
yeah,
awesome. That was a great pick. Definitely want to get my hands on that one.
What's your third pick, Sam?
Huh? My third pick. Well, I'm excited to talk about this one. It's a Radiance film release, and I watched it only a few days ago, actually, and it's absolutely blew me away. I say that maybe a bit too much, but I really mean it when I say it on this one. At the moment, this is probably the best thing I've seen this year so far, and I'm talking about Tai Kato's "By a Man's Face Shall You Know Him." From 1966. Yes, so this came out a couple of years before the other Radiance films release of I, the Executioner, also directed by Tai Kato, which is another film I really fond of. Really love that one. So yeah, this is a sort of an anti-Yakuza film of sorts, set not shortly after the war has ended, and there's also the tensions between like Korean nationals in Japan and the conflict that's arising there now that the war's over, and a chap who fought in the war, who's the lead actor, whose name I should probably know. His name is Nobuo Ando, who is actually a ex-Yakuza. So he's had this fascinating journey, which the special features on this disc go into, about how he was in the Yakuza, and he sort of like, due to financing, a lot of the films that were made in Japan, like post-war, especially the crime films and stuff, they were financed by the Yakuza, and occasionally some ex-Yakuzas transitioned into the film industry, and this instance is this guy, and he's the starring role in the film. He's very stoic, because he's very good in it, but you can also sort of tell that he doesn't have like a huge history or with acting, so he's sort of like gone into the role through various means, but he's still really good in it, particularly for the type of role he's playing. I don't know how much range he would have as an actor, but for this particular part, he suits it perfectly. And he is like a pacifist. So he fought in the war, but he's like, after the war ends, he becomes a doctor, and he's like set on trying to heal people and try and make up for all the wrongs that he did during the war, basically. And conflict arises where the Koreans are trying to take over like a marketplace in like a really rundown part of Tokyo. And he so happens to like own the deeds to the land, and it's how like the Koreans are trying to force out various different people, and the Yakuza are sort of like powerless to prevent all this happening. And but he's like very stoic and will not do anything to sort of like protect it. He's just like, I just don't want any trouble. And then things escalate with various different parts of his family, and it just takes you on a very a surprisingly emotional ride. I was very close to tears watching this film towards the end. It has a superb climatic ending that really shocked me. For 1966, there was a lot of stuff in Japan that had a lot of violence in it, but this, like, it was like bursts of violence that I wasn't expecting, especially for the tone of the film. There's a few action sequences, but it's a lot more of men talking in rooms, like trying to discuss the politics of the situation they're in, and things like that, and the locals that are being affected by the Koreans that are trying to overtake this part of the city and stuff like that. And like, after watching this second Taiketo film, I'm just baffled how this director has not been known, like, really prior to in Japan, in the East and stuff. I'm sure he's more known. This is very influential on like Kinji Fukasaku and things like that, directors like that. But like, I never heard of this director before Radiance put these films out, and now that I've seen these two films, I'm just kind of like really eager to get some more from this director, because I think these two films, in particular this one, I thought Eye Executioner was like close to a masterpiece, and then I watched this and I'm like, this is just absolutely stunning. It's got the tropes of a Yakuza film, but it's also anti, and then it's subversive, and then it's got a real emotional heart that a lot of some of those Yakuza films don't have. In fact, most of them don't. For me personally, they're very entertaining, very well made, and they have a lot of like hard hitting moments in terms of just visceral things. But this has an emotional core that are missing from a lot of those films for me, which is like, this is something that elevates it to something that I personally enjoy a lot more. And after seeing, again, I'm saying this because of watching the other one, but now you've watched this one, you can see the authorship in this director with particular camera angles and the way he frames certain things. I can see that this is a Taiketo film, based on only two films. So I'm interested to see if future films are ever released by this director, if I'm able to pick up on like his stylings and stuff like that, because it's very unique. It's sort of like a more kinetic Ozu, if that makes any sense at all. So there's a lot of close to the floor, the camera's positioned on the floor, close away from the action, and it's like staring up at it, but there's a lot of like this movement with it as well, whereas Ozu was usually a static camera from a distance on the floor looking up and just observing everything. This has that, but so you can tell that Taiketo was probably influenced by Ozu, but his storytelling is a lot more violent and frenetic in places, and so he's basically taken that sort of thing but made it his own. And I'm a huge fan of this. This is absolutely amazing. There's a great video essay on here called "The Tale of Scarface" by Nathan Stewart, and it's basically tells the story of the lead actor, Noboru Ando. I'll get familiar with all these names the more I read about this, because I've only watched it a few days ago. But it documents like who he was when he was in the Yakuza and how he transitioned into the film industry, and just generally how the Yakuza films sort of developed, as they used to be more like chivalry type films in like the earlier 60s, and then into the 70s we moved into like the more violent, hard-boiled Yakuza films that most people would associate with like Kinji Fukasaku and things like that. And this was like sort of a transitional period type film that's also sort of anti-Yakuza at the same time. And yeah, this is so good. Like, yeah, probably the best thing I've seen this year so far. We're only halfway through March, but yeah, this is the front runner for the best release that I've seen so far.
Cool. Oh, that was a John Oliver delivery, just stolen that. And no, it sounds great. I'm excited to see that when I do it. But I don't have it. So,
Same as I don't have the Roaring Twenties.
mm, it's the kind of downfall of these things, isn't it?
Can't have everything, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, never mind. I can watch fucking Andor on Disney Plus.
Whatever makes you happy, Davey. Cool.
Also had a video. Um, my last pick then is a release that's been out for a good few years, but um, I don't know about you, but there are certain labels who maybe because they're just not as cheap to import or they don't pop up on import sites as often or whatnot. Or this bizarre thing, and I've noticed that a lot since COVID, where if you don't pre-order something on Amazon US, it just kind of vanishes and says it can't be delivered to your country. Um, it's not as available on WoW HD as it used to be. And Kino are one of those labels for me. Um, just plus they release 19 things a week,
Oh yeah.
so try keeping up with Kino. Imagine one of those videos. Here's my complete Kino collection. I think they beat the Criterion collection every single year, pretty much. 3,000 releases. But 4-ish years ago, they released this and finally picked it up. The Silent Partner
Ah,
with Elliot Gould and Christopher Plummer. This is one of the most fun, most 70s films you will ever see in your life. Ever. Um, it's non-stop. It starts with Elliot Gould working in a bank in I think it's Toronto, but it's certainly filmed in Toronto. It's a Canadian produced film. And Elliot Gould's a bank teller, and Christopher Plummer comes in and robs the place. Right? But it does it in the old school style, here's a note saying, give me
yep.
the money and blah blah blah. But Elliot Gould puts, say, a couple of grand under the thing, gives Christopher Plummer the rest, who makes a quick departure. And then Christopher Plummer sees the news that says he got away with, say, 50 grand, but he only got 40. And he
Right.
knows that Elliot Gould has stolen his 10 grand. And he knows who he is, obviously, because he works at the bank. So it's all about the cat and mouse game between the bank robber to get his 10 grand off of the bank teller who can't go to the police because he stole the 10 grand in the first place. And he obviously doesn't want to give the 10 grand up. And Christopher Plummer's a bit of a psychopath. So there's the kind of, even if I give it to him, he's probably going to kill me. And it is the most insane cat and mouse thing you've seen ever. I swear to God, it is nuts. I don't like spoiling things in terms of the plot, so I'm not going to go much beyond that first, say, 40 minutes, apart from to say Christopher Plummer has to get back to the bank at a couple of points just to make the threats or let Elliot Gould know what's happening. But he obviously can't do it just dressed the way he was because other people might recognize him. One of them he dresses in drag, Christopher Plummer in drag.
Nice.
Yeah, and the original heist, he's dressed as Santa Claus while he does it.
Nice.
So it's this bizarre Christopher Plummer in all these different costumes, which gives it a real novelty feel, but it's all done completely straight faced. There's no kind of winking to the camera. It's all completely straight. And then there's an act of violence, and I won't say towards who, I won't say how, that is one of the most bleak things you will see outside quite a sadistic horror film ever.
Wow.
Involves serrated glass, and it is wow. When it happened, there was no way is that in a kind of slightly fun Charlie Vaddick like uh, bank heisty thing. No
Yeah.
way is something this violent in this, and it was. It is horrendously violent, wonderfully over the top. Um, it almost makes the whole thing have more of a horror tone than you'd imagine. And then it gives it more of a slight stalkery vibe from then on, because you know that Christopher Plummer ain't playing after you see that scene. It is so tense, it is so exciting, and it's so fun. Christopher Plummer knows what he's doing. He's playing it with a glint but never a wink. And Elliot Gould's his perfect Elliot Gould 70s self, where he's Mr. 70s, really, for me. He's one of those perfect actors for the time, for that new Hollywood. So yeah, it's just a tense, tight, fun thriller which goes places that you just wouldn't think that kind of any film would, never mind one with such mainstream names. But yeah, The Silent Partner, with Elliot Gould, Christopher Plummer, Susanna York, and I mentioned it was filmed in Canada. It's got a very, very, very young John Candy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's Elliot Gould's fellow bank teller, working with him behind the counters. Elliot Gould does an interview on here. Yeah, it's just really entertaining stuff. It's going to be nobody's favorite film, but it might be one of your favorite movies if you want to make the difference between the two things. For just pure entertainment in a movie.
Yeah,
So it's not particularly deep, but it's not shallow. It's just exactly what it needs to be.
that sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's the kind of thing that would have been the perfect rental in the 90s or something. If you just
Yeah,
randomly stumbled across it, you would have just been like, holy sh, I need to rent this straight away again, straight away.
awesome pick,
Or you could
man. I
buy
wasn't even
it from
aware that
DVD.
film existed, but
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, you would love this. It's
I
such an
think I would.
entertaining watch. Such an entertaining watch. And it has a radio spot. What an extra.
I always roll my eyes when we get things like that. I'm just like, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like when we get like the radio plays where I
Yeah.
love my big Finish audios.
Mm.
I like obviously we like documentaries and audio commentaries, but sometimes I mean I still buy DVDs for completionist sake sometimes, and when I look back and see interactive menu as a special feature, so the menu moves is what they mean. You can
Yeah.
move around the menu, or scene access. So you can jump to a scene. I don't remember being impressed by that in even 1999, never mind now.
Me neither.
No. I mean, I was an early adopter of DVD, but one of the focus points was not, wow, you can move the cursor around in the menu. This is like Windows 95. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Well, those are three each, so a grand total of six very different things
Yeah.
for us to.
Hold mine up, shall I?
Yeah, let's
There
do
we
that
go.
for. There we go. That's thumbnail worthy, that is.
There you go.
For lazy thumbnailers like me that just want to do a screenshot and call it a thumbnail, sometimes with a sarcastic caption. This is the bit where I need to think of something remotely interesting to say to kind of wrap things. Go forth and multiply. Sam, lend me your ears. Sam's uploaded some cracking stuff recently with I'm on one of them, so of course it is. That was Soft Focus, episode 3, a series of videos where Sam talks about with a guest. They're not all me, so other episodes aren't as good. Where they're okay. Chris and Elliot are fine if you like that kind of thing that isn't me. Nothing against them, it's just not me. Um, so Sam and his guest, not a million miles away from what we've done here, but they talked about a new release and go through it in a bit of depth. Nice, sharp, concise videos. And then this week you had the video on um, Possessor,
Yeah.
the new Second Sight 4K edition of Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. And I've just suddenly realized that instead of asking you what have you been doing recently, I've just explained everything for you.
No, thank you. It saves me the effort. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly all that. I've got a few more episodes of Soft Focus in the pipeline, so they've already been recorded. So probably another one will drop next week. And then
Spoilers, I'm not on them, so
you're not, Davey's not. He will be on someone that don't. Yeah, there's probably not any point watching. But Davey will be on in the future again. I'm certain of it. And yeah, just see how things go. Got nothing planned strictly. Sometimes it's just when inspiration strikes me to make a video about something, I sit down if I have the time to do something. So, but I do have a couple of soft focus videos that we'll be releasing over the next couple of weeks. So, yeah. How about you, Davey?
um I recently recorded a video with you. No, we just did that one. Yeah, that's it. I'm the same. I've just had no inspiration. I'm, I'm standing there waiting for the lightning to strike and nothing will, Like, please, please. Because sometimes I have this existential crisis that, wait a minute, instead of doing this, where I'm talking to you, and it's a conversation that we can therefore allow others to hear, and there's a bit of repartee, I have the sudden acute awareness that I'm sitting here talking to myself, and it somehow blows my mind that people would watch that. And then I convince myself that it's out of some kind of morbid curiosity, and I'm in some kind of uh, labyrinth of being a. This is a very Werner Herzog. I think I've been watching that documentary too much, but that people are observing me as I go slowly mad, and eventually I won't need the cameras to be turned on anymore. I will just talk to myself all day about films and music without the need for a camera.
Yeah, mate. Wow, that's hey, if once we finish recording, if you need to have a chat, I'm always here for you. So
It's okay. I took my medication this morning.
excellent.
Plus, also, I'm terribly lazy. That's
No
probably
worries.
more to do with it. But that was a more melodramatic thing to say. Folks, thank you for indulging this chicanery, as always. It's a good word for a Sunday morning. Thanks. Sam, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
Folks, I'll see you when I see you. If you don't see me, then it's because you weren't watching, in which case, come back and watch and leave an explanation for why you didn't watch in the first place. But by that point, you will have watched, so you don't need to explain yourself anymore.
What Davey said.
Something like that. Thanks, folks.